This is the second part of the ShadowMega RadZ Installation video series. In the first part we dealt with the teardown of the ShadowMega and drilling new holes into the case. I put the link for that video up in the corner. In this video we do the actual build of the RadZ part of the printer, i.e. the Z motion. For the XY motion, please refer to the ShadowMega build video linked in the upper right corner. Here's a list of tools that you will need to perform these tasks. Again, I suggest you watch through the video at least once to familiarize yourself with the task ahead, and let's dive right in.
Okay, so now we have 4 M4 screws with washer and T-nut along the wall here, and we're gonna put the 410mm 2020 on it. You can just go back once more. When you put the T-nut on, just put them vertical so that you can slide the 2020 on. Put it flush on the bottom here, and then just screw the T-nut, like loosen one of the T-nuts, and then quickly turn them and flip them the other way so that they hold. Yep, and then do that for the other 3. So now we've done the same thing here, the same setup with the 4 T-nuts and M4 screws. In the upper row, the one that we drilled out, and you don't need the middle one because that's blocked with the vertical 2020. Then you slide the this 2020 on. That's the 500mm one, and you do the same thing, like tighten the screws on the other side. Loosen them first, and then tighten them with a twist. Next up, we're gonna use M4 by 12mm countersunk screws. Put the front stepper counter plates and the center counter plate in, and on the other side we again have the T-nuts, and then we put a 500mm 2020 on there, center it up, like align it about like this, and then start screwing it on as we did before. Next up, we put the back counter plates in. Again, put some M3 screws through the stepper holes so you can see how they align. Make sure all of that aligns properly. And on the other side, you have the T-nuts on, and that's where you're going to put the third 2020 500mm. So next up, we're gonna mount the feet. If you look at the feet, there are 2 versions. What they should look like is there's a smaller edge and a wider edge. The smaller edge goes to the front, the wider edge goes to the inside, and as you have them mounted here, they should bend outwards and forward, as you can see here. And so the one that goes in the front here and the 2 that go in the back on the other side are the same model, and then the one that goes over here and the 2 in the back over here are the other model. So first thing, you have to make sure you have one heat cert in here, and the heat cert has to be on one of the smaller sides, and in a way so that they line up with this hole, which means it has to be on the side where the cup leans towards. Then you put that on, align it with the hole, and screw it on from the other side. And then after that, I'm going to show how we're going to mount it to the 2020 here. So you can push the screw through from the bottom, and then align it here and start screwing it down. So one thing to note when you mount the feet, the ones that go in the front have the heat cert towards the outside, whereas the one in the back have it towards the inside, because these feet will be kind of out here, whereas the other ones need, like the front ones, need to leave room for the stepper standoff. So just make sure you keep that in mind. So to put those side screws in, you take a T-nut, put it in the channel here, and then you just push it from the side until you can see it on the bottom there. Now you can see that the hole is aligned. Then you put the screw in, and screw it down. Once the screw is in, make sure you look from the side that the T-nut actually has turned around. As you can see, that's okay here. And then you do the same thing from the other side and for the other screws. And for the center steppers here, just hold the stepper standoff approximately in place and space them about maybe a centimeter or so apart from the stepper. And again, make sure that the one on the left points to the left and the one on the right points to the right. So when you do the back feet here, start with the screw in the center here and work your way outwards. That way, once the first one is in, you can look from the side here through the extrusion and see if the T-nut is actually aligned. Let's see if I can zoom. Yeah, the light doesn't reach. But yeah, that makes it a lot easier to align them. Now that all the feet are mounted, we put the squash balls on, and next thing up is stepper standoffs. And then to prepare the stepper standoffs, first thing we do is put like 2 of the sealed bearings in, and they should basically stack up like flush, so just like that. One thing to note is the C stepper for the back is a little shorter than the other one. Now in the versions that you receive, there will be an F here for the front and a B for the back. In this place here, it's just these are like a little older models than the ones that I'll ship out. So these are the stepper couplers here, the shaft couplers. The 5mm side goes on the stepper shaft, and the 8mm side will be for the lead screw. Put that on here, like loosen the screws here first, then put it on all the way down, and then just back it off just like a millimeter or so. They shouldn't be all the way on the stepper shaft, and then just go and tighten this nice and tight, and that should now turn like that. Okay, now that we have all the shaft couplers mounted, next thing is we put the standoff on it. For the back one, this is the back. It goes. Let's see. Yeah. It goes on like this, so that this comes out the side towards the electronics board. We're going to put 4 M3 by 14mm in here, and then we're going to screw it to the case with I think 4 M3 by 8mm. And for the front steppers, the plug here should align with the little cutout on the back there. Now we're gonna align the lead screw to the stepper. We're gonna use this little template for that. You take your stepper standoff with the stepper attached, but this is not tightened down yet, so this is still completely loose here. You put the bearings in. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is the bearings to the lead screws are extremely tight, so as you put them on, it might be hard to put them on at first, and so I actually run them over the lead screw a couple of times. I found that sometimes the lead screws have like a little burr here and there, and running the bearing over it kind of smooths that out. Now obviously later on we're gonna run that with a little bit of oil on the lead screw, and so it'll be a little easier then, but you should be able to move this bearing up and down very easily, and if you don't, then just run the bearing over the lead screw a couple of times. Then put the bearing back in here, and you put the lead screw into the template. That should be very, very snug. I mean, there should be no place here whatsoever. Then I'm using 4 M3 by 8mm screws here. Then you put the lead screw into the bearings and into the shaft coupler on the bottom. Oops. You can see how snug that is. Okay, so put that in, and you make sure this turns, and then put the template down and just lightly screw those screws down. This is still completely loose here, so okay, put the template all the way down. Make sure the lead screw still, let me move my hand out of the way, so the lead screw still moves up and down easily. Then go hold the template and start tightening them crosswise, but just a tiny amount, like very little. Okay, then you check again that the lead screw is still moving up and down and rotates without a problem. Then you give it another turn here. Just a little more. Test again, still going up and down okay, still rotating okay. And now you're tightening the screws here all the way. Should just be a little bit left here. Okay. And again, check that the lead screw goes all the way into the stepper coupler. I'm going to switch over to the Allen key here, and then I'm tightening the stepper coupler, like the shaft coupler, to the lead screw. As you can see, it still rotates freely. And then I start tightening these screws again, at first very lightly, so that the standoff actually can kind of center itself. Then I make sure I can still rotate it nicely, still moves good. Then I tighten a little more. Rotate again, still good. And then I tighten it all the way. Okay, check again. Yep, still rotates. Then I can go and loosen the Allen screw that holds the lead screw. And pull the lead screw out again. And then remove the template here. And that's it. So now the stepper is perfectly aligned with the bearings on top, and so the only thing we need to do later on is actually align the whole standoff to the linear rail, and the lead screw itself should center itself perfectly on the stepper below. And that's that. Okay, so to put the stepper standoffs on, turn them like that so that this cutout is over the 2020. Start putting the screws through. Put all four in and just put them in loosely, and then tighten them crosswise once they're in. We're likely still gonna take that. We're still gonna loosen those again. You don't have to tighten them that hard, because once we need to adjust the stepper alignment to the lead screw, we're gonna basically loosen that again to move the stepper. And then once you have all of that installed, that's what it should look like. C stepper here facing the electronics board, and the two front steppers face towards the center of the printer. And that is the bottom of the printer done. The next thing we want to do is install the back 1515 extrusions again that we took out earlier from the original C motion. We just put them in the back to give additional stability to the case, really. When you install them, make sure you like screw the bottom one in first, but don't tighten it all the way yet. Then put in all the 5 screws here, since M3D only had 3 in each, but we took 4 out in four rails out in total. We'll have 12 screws, so we can put all 5 in here, because that gives it a lot more stability. And then tighten those, but like put those in, but don't tighten yet. Just make sure that it's nicely pulled to the case, but not tight yet. Then you tighten the bottom one, and then you tighten all the ones on the side, and that gives this whole back side quite a bit more stability. And you'll notice how much more rigid the whole frame is once you have it at this point in time, with the back extrusion here, the bottom extrusions down here, and the vertical extrusion here, and then the two 1515s. You should see that your case is a lot more stable than what it was just a moment ago, like when you originally had it. So at this point we're gonna put the vertical rails in. As you can see, we already put the X and Y axis in, and the front idler holder. We cleaned out and looped the vertical rails, and while they were drying off, we figured we have some time and we jumped ahead and put these in. They don't really impede anything. I probably would put all the Z-axis stuff in first and then deal with the XY after that, but it doesn't matter if you do it a little bit out of sync there. And for the XY rebuild, just follow the video in the ShadowMega build. It's basically the same thing that you did back then. So yeah. Before I put the rails on, make sure you actually go and ream these out, like deburr it, because that would obviously be bad if the rail is not completely flush to the side here. So for the vertical rails, we're gonna use M3 pan heads, 8mm ones from the outside, and on the inside we put round nuts in, and they basically kind of press fit in there, and the friction will keep them in place. Just really close here. You have to make sure that they're really straight. If it is it sliding in? I think what I did is I put them actually in the rail before I put it up. So yeah, take the rail out. Now take a screw from the other side. Let's take the longer one.
Really tight.
They are really tight. And if you put the screw in from the other side and you screw it on and pull it in, it kind of centers it. Because if they're just a little bit off angle,
This isn't reaching it.
not the one that I got in here. Now you should be able to kind of pull it from the other side.
That worked good.
Yep, just like that. And then you do that for 5 screws on each side. Hold on, make sure you have the right one.
The right one, what?
The right hole.
It's the bottom one, right?
Is it? Yeah, looks like it.
So there's 2 holes here. There's a larger countersunk and then the smaller one. We want the smaller one, right?
The small one that we drilled.
Okay, so that's this one. Second one.
And once you have those 2 on, you should be able to screw it on and then pull the rest in the same way. So we're going to do that now, and we'll be back after. So the trick is, make sure that you don't have it all the way tight down yet. Push a screw in, like a longer M3 screw from the outside. Thread the round nut on top of it, just a couple of turns, then pull back, and from the outside You might have to fiddle with the rail a little bit, but this looks like it's not quite aligned. And then that's what it basically should look like here. That it's all the way in like this, and then you can take the longer M3 screw out again and screw in the pan head with the washer. Once you have all the screws in, don't tighten them all the way yet. We're still gonna work with that to make sure that they're completely vertical. But we'll do that once we have the lead screw in and we start adjusting things. So that's how you prepare the back rail. On the bottom here, you start on the third hole, and then every second hole you put an M3 by 10mm countersunk with M3 T-nut on the other side, and then you turn it over and put it into the 2020, and then we take the guide and put one on that side and put one on the other side to center it, and then you go and loosen the T-nuts so that they spin freely, and then with a flick like twist it so that they catch on the rail. And having it vertical should help with gravity, that the T-nut actually spins into the proper position, because the M3 T-nuts are a little harder to mount than the M4 or M5 ones. And you want to make sure that the rail is just flush on the bottom radius there. It doesn't have to press hard against it, just keep it in place there. Okay. If you have problems with one of them not gripping, where the T-nut just doesn't want to grip, just lift the screwdriver up a little bit while you start turning, so that the edge of the T-nut grips on the side of the channel. And once you start feeling it grip, you can go back and screw it in like level.
Now we need to prepare our C brackets and put them onto the lead screw. For that, take one of the lead screws and one of the Delrin nuts and put them together like you see here. Thread the Delrin nut into the bottom part just so that you can see it peek through a little bit in that little gap there. Then you go and you compress the nut by pushing the top down onto the bottom, and make sure that the tab aligns with the little cutout, and then you thread the lead screw further in. Make sure that it doesn't like get the top nut at an angle. Just thread it all the way nicely in, and then it should look like this. And you should see like a small little gap between the top and the bottom. That's okay. And then take one of the back plates and use 4 M3 by 6mm screws and screw it on to the bottom of the Delrin nut. Now take one of the brackets and one of the bearings and tilt it in like this, and then clip it down, pushing it back so that it stays in place like you see here. Then you go and you take one of the lead screws with the back plate on it and push it from the bottom into the bracket, and use another 4 M3 by 6mm screws and screw it into the bottom there. And then it should look something like this. And that's basically all we need to do for those 3 lead screws.
Okay, next up we're working on the lead screws. Take a little bit of a 3-in-1 oil and just put a drop or 2 on it, and that'll work its way down. For the side brackets, the one that has the heat certs on it goes in the back, the other two go in the front. Left and right doesn't matter. To prepare the area, we're gonna put the thrust washers in here first, and we're gonna put the lock nut onto the lead screw, and we're gonna loop the thrust washer with like a light grease of some sort. For example, I'm using Super Lube silicone grease. Okay, so we're gonna put the bottom race in with the groove facing upwards. Then you put the ring with the bearings in with the balls being exposed to the top, so the brass ring on the bottom. Take a little bit of super lube or whatever grease you use, spread it across, just spread it across a little bit, then put the top race on it the other way around, like basically with the race down or with the groove down, and then you can just run that around a couple of times there to nicely distribute the grease. Can't see. And then that's good. Then you take the lead screw. The lead screw has the lock nut already on it, not tightened. And you put it straight down into the hole. Make sure the thrust washer stays in place. And just push the lead screw all the way down until it's in the stepper, in the coupler. We're still going to adjust that in a bit, and then we're going to deal with the top here. We have the sled, the block right behind here, so just push that down, and that should align the holes here. And we're gonna put a M3 by 8mm in there. Okay, so take the screw and just put them in lightly. Don't tighten them yet. You still want the C bracket to move so that it nicely can align itself. So at this point, the carriage, the C bracket should still wiggle a little bit, and then you gently tighten them a little bit crosswise, not all the way yet, just tighten them a little bit. Just gently, crosswise, like all four. And once all four have been like tightened a little bit, now you can go and tighten them all the way again crosswise. And do that for the other side too, and then for the back side, that's the one that has the C fin on it, and we're gonna mount that in a moment. And then you use M3 by 6mm screws to mount the fin on the left side here of the back bracket.
And then you go and install it the same way as you did for the front left and right.
Next we're gonna tighten the lead screw. Make sure that it's all the way down, like and then pull it up just a little bit, just like a millimeter, and then tighten the screw right here. Oops. Until it's nice and tight. Okay. And then on the top, you make sure that your thrust bearing is perfectly aligned. Then you press down on the lock ring and you tighten that little grub screw, sorry. I guess I can turn it over a little bit so you have better access to it. It's a little finicky, but hopefully you only have to do it once. Okay, and now if you turn this, you see that the thrust washer actually also turns. So do that with all 3 lead screws, and then we're on to the next step. And for the Z Endstop, take the Endstop holder, take 2 M3x18mm countersunk, put the optical Endstop in the back, put 2 washers on the screws, and then put 2 M3 nuts on it and tighten it so that it doesn't have to be really hard tightened, just so that it stays in place. And that's what it should look like once you're done. So now the Z Endstop is assembled. Those are 2 M4x14mm countersunk screws with T-nuts on the other side. The next step is you take it and put the cable between the case and the lead and the rail down there. Make sure that the cable doesn't snag. Then slide the. I think it's catching. Like, you need to really guide the cable there. So that. Yeah, keep it underneath like that. Yep, that's perfect. So, and then you take the screwdriver, loosen the screws until the T-nut is in the channel. You don't have to tighten too hard yet, because we're still going to adjust that. When we adjust the Z Endstop, basically we slide the Z Endstop into the right position so that it triggers when the bed is almost at the bottom. Okay, and then the cable here goes through this little cutout right here to the electronics board. And so that's what it should look like once you're done with the Z Endstop. Okay, so that's pretty much it for now for the X motion. We still have to build the bed, but first we're gonna build up the rest of the ShadowMega part, and to do that you just can follow the ShadowMega assembly video and just assemble everything back the way it was.
Press turbo. Enter the flash.
So here we work on the side idlers. There was an issue with the right side idler where it was an older model and it just didn't align properly, as you can see in the text here.
For the camera, This is how smooth it should run. So nice, like butter. Okay, now the back part.
So now we're adding the back stepper assembly. Since we took the whole thing off in one piece, we put it back on in one piece.
Don't over tighten these. Like with these you can actually pull out the heat certs.
And for this you really should follow the video of the ShadowMega build. This is just basically an illustration of what we did. Here I'm putting the carriage on, Z Endstop fin, and then we're preparing the cable chain. He had like some old cables in there that were no longer used, so we're gonna remove that and basically route all the cables fresh. Here we put the new PSU, the new Fanless PSU on. There is a section on that in the video later on where I talk about that in detail. I'm mounting the cable chain to the carriage and then to the top cover standoff. Joe just mounted the Hemera to the carriage. Then we put the PTFE tube in, then the stepper cable, then the heater cable. Now we're working on the different sensor cables and fan cables. Putting the cable, the chain stabilizer on and closed up the cable chain. Screwing on the top cover standoff.
Okay, time to do the bed. We have two 420mm that go on the outside here, two 390mm that go across, and the 380mm that goes in between. When you align those at the front and at the back here, there should be a 3mm gap where the side ends before the other part starts. And these two ends here, like the center here, should not touch the outside rails. Now we're gonna put some slide-in T-nuts. Those are not the turn ones, those are the slide-ins, because it's a little easier to get that done. We need 4 on each of the end pieces.
There's a piece of metal.
And then 2 each on the end there, on the other part. These are M5 by 8mm panhead screws, and don't tighten them yet, just like start them so you can move stuff around still. At this point I'll fast forward. Before we put the side on, we need to slide 1 nut in the back. That's why I kind of found it easier to just slide the things in, align them, and then screw it on.
Oh, we can put one on this way easily.
Yeah. Just because they're so...
Well, when they're loose like this, they're fiddly, yeah.
Exactly, like they're so twisty. You can tighten those for now to keep them in place. And you're probably better off with the screwdriver is a little longer than that one.
Guys are going to be laughing watching me do this.
Well, it's going to be on fast forward, so... And believe me, they will struggle just like you, because I struggled just like you. It's not something you just go like tuk 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 and you're done. And you don't have to worry about it too much yet, because we still need to put it on a flat. Don't measure that yet. We still have to put it on a flat surface to actually make the bed completely flat. So we're probably going to put it on the chick plate or the mirror. I guess we can use the mirror. You do want to have them tightened right now so that they don't slide off. Okay, before you close this up, take another T-nut and slide it in the back here, on top here. Just like that. That's where one of the pull mounts go, or one of the pull bearings go when we mount the bed in the printer. Now what we need to do is we need a really flat working surface. One of the things you can do is we can actually take the mirror and put that on top. And now we need to loosen the screws again, just a little bit, just so that the frame has enough play. Those you don't need to worry about, just worry about.
Oh, you said these didn't slide out.
This is okay. What we actually need is the square. Where's the square? So basically now we have to align this and as we align it, there's this one here, the caliper is set to 3 millimeters. So measure 3 millimeters here, and then you can tighten these two screws so far. Don't tighten too hard yet, like tighten one direction a little bit so it pulls close, and then tighten the other direction all the way. And then go back and tighten the first one. Okay, then we do the second angle. Over. Is this one tight? So again, keep the angle in here. Measure the 3 millimeters. Keep the angle tight and tighten one a little bit. Tighten the other one. Tighten the first one all the way. Okay. Next corner, same thing. Put the angle. Measure the 3 millimeters. Tighten the first one a little bit. Tighten the second all the way. And tighten the first all the way. Last one. Then go back and check for squareness once more. Okay, that looks good. Now the center one is going to have like a little gap on each side, and for the distance here we actually need the bed heater to align it. So this is the back where the pole bearing goes. So let me see.
The heater's going away.
So if this goes like that, the thing is.
Okay.
So if this is the back, this is over here, this goes on like that. Yeah, that's the right orientation. And then align the screws here. Oops. Turn it over and align it like this. Make sure it's square, and you can actually measure here. Let's see how much we got here.
We're using inches.
Huh?
Flip it over.
Oh,
That's the metric side.
that's yes. Okay. 170 on this side here. That seems right. 200 on that side. That's right too. Because obviously M3D couldn't put the center row into the actual center of the plate. That would have been too hard.
It wasn't even desirable.
And the same thing here, like tighten a little bit, then tighten the other one, and make sure you keep a gap. And now we're actually going to install the heater on here. For that,
Does this go on the side with the nut or on the other side?
it goes on the opposite side of the nut.
So the nut is the bottom.
Yep, the sliding nut is the bottom, and then so
Is that where we put it on?
yes. So if this is the back, the heater goes on that side, and So I guess you can leave this one here, like you can leave the center one unscrewed in the, like, basically just like loosely tightened, and we can adjust it once we actually put the heater on, so that it's exactly in the right position. So next thing we do is we put M3 by 12 millimeter, then the nylon washer and the M3 T-nut into all of those holes. That's 13 in total. Then you put it on the way it goes, and basically put it like this and align all the T-nuts. You need to like rotate them in a way so that they go into the channel. If you have a screwdriver, you can nicely arrange them here. Just something for that. Not for that. And then once the heater is on like this, you basically go and start with the center here, just like any other T-nut. Like this one is not on properly here. Obviously verify that all of them are really all the way in. Once they're all the way in, take one, like loosen it and then twist it. You might have the same issue again where the nut doesn't grab unless you give it a certain angle here. Okay. And there we go. And then there basically you go all the way around, make sure all of that is on. The cable here goes in between the frame and the heater plate, so that should basically go in between here. If it goes underneath, just route it in there before you screw it down. And that's it in terms of mounting the heater. So let's talk a little bit about how to prepare the chick plate. This is a 6mm aluminum chick plate, 430mm wide, 426mm deep. Before you drill, check which side is flatter. There could be a difference between the two sides, and you want the side that is flatter, you want that to be the top. So in this case here, this one is the flatter side of the two. What we did is we marked a 1 centimeter gap around the edge here, which helps us align the heater as we're priming the holes. Actually, before you drill, you probably want to take a little file like this here, like a flat file, small flat file, and just run over this edge and the back a couple of times, just to make it a little smoother, so that when you like operate the printer later on, you don't like accidentally cut yourself on that corner. So I'm going to do that first here, and then I'm going to talk about the drillings. So these edges are nice and smooth now. I did like the 4 on the top here, then the 4 underneath, and also the 4 corners here, just for good measure. one thing to mention is like the jig plate update is completely optional. It's perfectly okay to run a mirror as a print surface or any other thing that you can put onto the heater itself. I did this with mine, and I'm going to do it with this machine here, so that we can fit the WhamBam on it. And I have to say, I absolutely love my WhamBam. The print quality with it that I'm getting is excellent. The fact that you can just pull the magnetic sheet off and get the prints off of it and so on is really handy. So I really like it. And I'm gonna link the source for the jig plate that I've used, but there are many places that offer like 6mm jig plates. So the first thing you do is you take your heater and you line the holes here with the marking that we made at the 1 centimeter mark. Just try to align it so it's equally spaced all over the place. Since your jig plate might not be exactly 430 by 426, the guideline might not be exactly in the center, but then just basically center it between the two of those and between the two of these. Once you have them about right, take a center punch and punch a marker inside of the 10 holes on the outside here. Leave the center ones alone for now. Take the heater off, and from the front you drill countersunk M3 holes. There are drill bits that can drill that in one go. If you don't have one, drill like a 4mm hole and then countersink that. 4mm just gives you a little bit more leeway to align it later on with the frame. Then once you've drilled that, turn it over, take your heater again, align it again, this time to the actual holes that you drilled, and then use the center punch and mark these two holes. Leave the center one alone, just these two in the center line here. Mark those, and those you drill for an M3 tap, so you don't drill them all the way through. You drill about 4.5mm deep, and then wash it out and use some oil. Put an M3 tap in it and just gently tap it. Once you've done that, wash that out so that there is no debris in it, and then you're ready to actually mount the heater. So before you actually screw on the heater, use a bit of isopropyl alcohol. Just put some on the bed here, on the jig plate, and just clean it off a little bit. You're not going to see that again for a while, hopefully, so you do want that to be kind of clean. You don't want like fat or anything else on there that might impact your heat. So okay, and then you can go put the heater on, align the two center screw holes here, and just gently screw that in. You don't want to tighten that yet because you still have to align all the other holes, and we'll tighten these two screws all the way at the end. Next thing you do is take M3 by 18mm screws, countersunk, and you put one through the hole here. Put a nylon washer on it. And then M3 T-nut. With the M3 T-nut, make sure that the flat part faces the nylon washer. Okay. And then you do that for all the other holes here. And once that's done, you can tighten the two center screws. So let's do that quick and I'll be back. One thing I didn't mention before is these screw holes here, and the ones in the center obviously have to be drilled with a drill press, because I don't think you can drill them precise enough just freehand. So if you don't have a drill press, find somebody that does, like I did, and then have them help you drill it. Go over it once more, make sure all your T-nuts are the right way around. You don't want them upside down. They all look good. Have them aligned so that they align with the channel that they go in. And then you take your frame and you look for the single sliding nut that you left in here before, and that basically has to be on the underneath of the bed, so facing up as we're mounting it here, and it has to be on the back side of the bed. So since this here is on the left side, this would be the back. So then go ahead, put the bed on here. These here are not tied down yet, so for the jig plate, it's easier if you tighten those at the end. Flip the bed over, check that all of your T-nuts are properly in the slot here, that none of them push up the frame. And the sensor cable here needs to go between the heater and the 2020 extrusion. So make sure that goes in between, because once you have the bed on like that, that plug can no longer fit through there. So turn the bed over like this. Then again push down nicely so that all of the T-nuts are inside. Loosen that a few turns and turn it back so it catches. I usually like to do this crosswise. And then go to the center here. If one doesn't want to catch, just get back to that later. Okay, I have two that didn't catch, so let me see if they actually fell off. Let me get my flashlight. Okay, you can see it in there. There we go. Yep, that looks good now. And the other one is this one. Yep. Got a look from the other side here. The M3 T-nuts, they're a little finicky. Trying to get them to catch because they can rotate freely. And if that's the case, just try and tilt the bed until you find a way that it catches. Ah, there we go. Okay, so go through it once more, just to make sure you didn't forget one. Okay, they're all nice and tight, and that's basically it in terms of installing the chick plate. Next thing I'm going to show is how to put the WhamBam on it. Again, completely optional. You can, even if you have a chick plate, you can just put any other print surface on top of it and replace that when you need it. So let's do that in the next section here. One more thing you can do is, since we have the bed now, the bed frame on a really flat surface, we can loosen these two screws here and just make sure that the frame is nice and flat here. Press down on the corner here, press down on the corner here, and tighten those again, and then do the same thing over here. If one is a little too tight, just try and see if you can do the other one. There's, again, not a lot of space here. This one, press down on the corner, and tighten it again. And then I mentioned before that these were not tightened yet, so we can do that now. And the gap here doesn't need to be equal, as long as there is a gap and it doesn't like directly push onto one of the end pieces. That's fine. Then check that everything's solid, and that's basically it. Voila, a bed with chick plate. So to install the WhamBam, we first want to clean and prepare the surface here. Use some isopropyl alcohol and paper towel, and just get like the fat and the oil and all that kind of stuff from machining. Get that off. And you probably want to do that like a few times until your paper towel looks clean. So there's a little bit of stuff here and here, but I think that's good for now. We're gonna use some sanding paper to basically roughen up the surface a little bit and get whatever else is still left on there, get that off the build plate. I kind of made a little contraption here so that I can sand nice and straight, basically two 2020s like mounted together, and then I can basically hold the sandpaper and just run it over. And this is wet dry sandpaper, and since you don't really want to roughen it up too much, just put a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on it. And just go across it a few times. And this is a 240 sandpaper. So go and wipe that off. Now, one thing I noticed is that this is actually not quite flat. It looks like over here it's a little lower, so I might actually go over it once without the bar, just so that all of it actually gets a little bit of treatment. And you're not putting a lot of pressure on here, so okay, should be very good. Some more paper towel. Now I want to go over it until it no longer comes back black. So still dark, so more to wipe off. I think that should be about it. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now that the plate is clean and dry, like all the alcohol has evaporated, we need to actually prepare the magnetic plate. So get the magnetic plate out, and since the 410 by 410 is a little larger than the area where the screws are here, we actually need to make little cutouts for where the screws are. And the way I do this, I align it left and right at the centers of the screw, and at the front and the back it's the edge of the screw, or just about the edge of the screw. Now that looks about right. And then I use a single hole punch like this, and I check where the screw is, and I punch a half hole where the screw is, and for these like a hole, like a complete hole, and then cut out a little bit. Doesn't have to be too pretty. Make sure that the WhamBam here faces you when this is on the left side, so that you don't get upset later on that the WhamBam might be upside down or something. So basically lift this up here, align the hole punch where the screw hole is, and sometimes you just need like a little bit more. Just like that. And this is well outside of the print area, so you don't have to worry about that. And then empty out the hole punch here. Okay. And then make sure you don't move your your magnetic plate, go to the next one, approximately align it, and that was pretty good. There, 2 of them done, and just do that for all the screw holes around. And the reason why we're doing that is so that if we had to, we could take the jig plate off without needing to remove the magnetic plate. Because those magnetic plates, they're single use, like once they're down, they don't come off. So. And then we do the same thing here in the front and the back. And this one, as I said, this needs a hole, complete hole. So we just move it in a little further. And then clip off the edges here. As I said, it doesn't need to be pretty, just make it so that that you can take the screws out when you need to. Next step, we loosen, like we remove about 2 inches of the paper here, and what you do is just gently loosen it here, and the corners you have to grab again. Make sure you don't touch the actual magnetic area, and then flatten the paper, turn it over, align the holes here, align the holes on the side, align the holes in the back. That looks good. And then you press down from the center and you move outwards. Always center outwards. Then you lift up the magnetic plate and remove a bit more of the paper. And I'm using a smaller roller like this. Go forward like that, and then outwards. Pull a bit more back. Go forward and outwards. A little bit more. You get the idea. And then you remove the rest of the paper. And again, center, forward and outwards. And outwards on the other side. And then just over it once more. And that's it. Wham! Bam! There it is. This now has to cure for 3 days, so don't immediately start putting the metal plate on it and rip it off and so on, because the glue has not quite bonded yet. So let this cure for 3 days and then you're ready to print on your WhamBam. Okay, that's it. For the next step, we're going to install the cable chain for the heater. And what you need is the small cable chain. Should be 10 by 11 millimeter internal dimensions. You need the original heater sensor cable that you took out of the Promega bed. You don't reuse that. The mount point that goes in the back here. Now this will likely change a bit. I figured I'll do the install here with the stock PSU, and when I did that I noticed that this hole here, that is one of the two that is used to screw the piece in, is actually obstructed by the stock PSU. Now if you use the Fanless PSU, you don't have that problem, but so I'll probably have to redesign that, and I'll probably make it longer so that you can use the 2 screws down here as well as the one up here to mount the piece in place and still have it stable. So this piece here will likely be a bit longer. Then you need 2 M3 by 8 millimeter pan head with a washer, and 6 M3 by 6 millimeter countersunk screws. And one of the things you want to do probably is like take one of the M3 by 6 millimeters and just screw it into the part here just to get the thread going, and then you can take it out again, because we're gonna screw directly into the plastic here, because with those small cable chains there's just not enough place here to actually put a heat sert in. So we're screwing directly into the plastic. And these parts I think are printed with 3 perimeters, 0.3 millimeter, I think 20% infill, and 4 top layers. So then for the cable chain, there are 2 different ends. One of them is stiff here, that goes into the part that is next to the bed, and the one that can turn freely is the one that goes on the wall here. You can take one of the like a small screwdriver and open the cable chain, which will make it easier to put the cable in. Just don't open the last element on either side. Leave those closed, because that's where the piece kind of connects, and so that one you can't easily close that once it's screwed in. The rest you can basically, as you have it tilted, you can get to the rest. And having it open just makes it a little easier to get all the cables in, because it's a very small cable chain, and the cables are kind of they're kind of beefy, especially the plugs, and so it's not that easy to fiddle it through the whole cable chain when the cable chain is closed. Okay, let me do that quick and fast forward. And just to show quick how it actually works is you take the small screwdriver, put it in here, and just loosen it, and then you can flip it open. Then you take the wall piece, make sure you do have the proper end of the cable chain, and align with the holes on the cable chain here. Put one of the screws in and just tighten it lightly. Don't tighten it all the way until you have all the screws in. Once all of them are in, you can go ahead and tighten it solid. Then you flip it over. Do the same thing over here. The cable chain exits out this way, so put the cable chain in here. Again, align it. This one is a little trickier to get the screws in because it's just a little deeper and you can't easily hold the chain in place and align the screw. So you have to fiddle with that a little bit. There we go. Once the first one is in, it's easier because then you don't need to hold the chain in place. You can just hold the screws while you drop them in. Once all three are in, tighten them all the way. Okay, and then that's that for the mount points. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the cables in. That's probably easier done while the cable chain is not mounted yet, so I'm just gonna do that for now. First one we want to put in is our sensor cable. The bigger plug, the one that actually has the pins, goes to where the bed is, so feed that through here. Again, as I said, this is a fairly small cable chain because everything in this printer is very constricted space-wise, so pull that through. Just have a, like, for now, have probably about like 2 inches or so hanging out. Feed the cable through the rest of the chain, and then out the other side. Just like that. The reason why we want to put that one in first, since this plug is kind of big, once the beefy heater cables are in, there is just not enough space to actually put that plug still through. So this guy goes in first, and then heater cables are after that. Yeah, so next step is the heater cables. I'm going to come back to that because I actually have to mount this first, measure the actual length that the heater cable needs to be. I'll crimp it and then take it off again and show the assembly how I'll do it. When you guys get the set, the heater cable will be crimped and ready to install, so you don't have to worry about measuring or anything like that. It just will be the right size. Okay, I'll be back in a bit. And I'm back. The cables have been measured, crimped, and are ready. One thing that I noticed, I took the cable for the sensor out once more because I wanted to test something. And it's actually easier if you take the smaller plug and feed that from the inside here through, like this, then trying to move the larger plug from the other side. Just gives you a little bit, makes it a little easier to get the cable through, and then just pull through go to the other side and push it through this as well, to this side, and pull it out the other side, and then just pull until you have about 2 inches left here. And pull on the other side until it's snug. Just like that. This can still be adjusted, so don't worry too much about it. Since the cable is so small, you can easily just pull it and tug it in the right position. Then we have the heater cables here. They have been cut, measured, cut, and crimped. The red one is the positive, the black one is the negative. The ends are slightly different. On one side, both of them only have a single plug, and the plug is straight. That goes through the back here to the duet board. On the other side, the connectors are kind of bent, because when you put them on the bed, you kind of have to put them on like this, because there's just not enough space on the side of the bed here if they were straight out. And the positive here has the second loop for the second loop of the heater, and they're just connected straight, so we don't have that whole switch anymore that we had before. What you want to do is take one of the cables with the side that goes to the duet board, feed it through the opening here, pour it all the way, feed it through the opening on the other side, and just pull it through like this for now. Take the other one again with the end that goes to the duet board. This one is a little tighter because now we have one of the bigger cables in there already, but you should be able to just wiggle that through. Once the plug is through, it's fairly easy for the rest. Okay, pull that through, go to the other side, and push it through there as well, just like that. At this point we can go and close up the cable chain. So I like to do it in the way that actually I might pull this one out once more, just so that it's easier to arrange the cables inside, that they're nicely next to each other. I should have done that before, so. And that's what I meant with everything's very tight with this printer. So put the black one through, leave the red one out on this side, but put it on the other side, and then like put the cables next to each other, kind of like this, and start closing up the cable chain. Now here it looks like the red is actually fit with the black, so just sort that out so that they're both straight through. Doing that makes it a little easier on the cable chain, like when you have it like twisted somewhere, it could be that that part doesn't quite bend as nice as the rest, so it's not just my OCD here, even though I'm sure that has some play in it too. Okay, pull the black one. And then arrange the little sensor wire so that those two are not tangled. Okay, when you have about this much left, take the red heater cable, push it through on the correct side of the black. And get it in there. Okay, now they're nice and next to each other. And then close up the rest of the cable chain, and that's that. Now, to actually bring those cables to the back here, you actually have to loosen these 4 screws, which hold the 2020 in the back in place, so you can push the 2020 enough so that there's a little gap here, because if you don't do that, then the cables here just won't, like the plugs won't fit through. It's just too tight that way. Let's see, red is on the right side, black is on the left, so let's put the red through first. Okay, then we put the black through. Then we can move this in place here. Gotta make sure that the black got pulled back a little bit, so bring that out again. Take the M3 by 8mm with the washer. Align the heat certs on the back here. And screw it on. Okay, and then this is what it should look like. The cable chain should clear the 1515 here, just snug. And as you move the other part up and down, it should just fall in place here. So, and that's it in terms of a cable chain installment. One thing we haven't done yet is mount the Optical Z Endstop holder. So this looks like. This will go up here, and then we'll adjust it by moving it over as far as we need it to measure the proper distance. So first thing, turn it around and insert the actual optical switch in here. There we go. Just insert it all the way. The plug is at the open end of it. Turn it around. take two M3 by 18mm screws, countersunk, put them through here. Okay, then turn it around again, and on the other side you're gonna put two M3 washers and M3 nuts on it and just gently tighten them. Doesn't have to be like really hard. Okay, the nuts are on now with the washer underneath. I used a little plier to keep it in place. It's a little hard to reach in there, but it shouldn't be a problem. Then take two M4 by 14mm countersunk screws, put them in here, and take a T-nut and screw the T-nut on. Align it like this so you can easily slide it in, and I'm going to do the other one now. Now that both T-nuts are in, take the Optical Endstop and slide it into the 2040 extrusion here, and just move it over as far as it goes. Loosen the screw and tighten it again. And that is it. And then this cable here, you can route through the inside here and down through this channel down here. Basically this channel here, right above the board, between the board and the 2020 here. Just route that through, and we're gonna plug it into the Endstop. I think it's one of these guys here. And don't tighten these the screws up here too tight yet, just keep it in place. We're still gonna loosen those once we have everything wired up, so that we can adjust the X Endstop. Basically the way that works is we'll move the carriage all the way over and then adjust the Endstop so it just triggers right before the carriage hits the edge. And that's it for the X Endstop.
And now it's time to wire up the electronics, the power supply, and all the other goodies that we have.
So when mounting the switch back, there are really three options. The first is screwing the switch into one of the original holes. The second one is like filled by the 2020 nut for the 50mm for the 500mm 2020 extrusion, and then just use the other hole and drill through there and screw it on like this. Or I'm gonna make a new case for this that attaches to the 2020. And the third option is to get my electronics box that has like the power built in, and that also has the benefit of actually switching the power in front of the PSU instead of between the PSU and the electronics board. So those are the three options that you have there, all relatively simple. To take the switch out of the old case, all you need to do is take a flathead screwdriver, put it into this gap here, and basically press forward, and the switch pops out here, and then you can remove the cable shoes that are on the cable and slide the cable out the back. This is what it looks like when the switch is slid out, and then when you want to remove the cable shoes, just put like some pliers here and pull the cable shoe off. They're not too tight. So this is what the new switch cover or switch holder looks like. It mounts to the 500mm 2020, and I figured I'll do the switch vertical instead of horizontal like the ProMega had. I think that's the better arrangement. And then from here we'll hook up the cables to the Maestro and to the power supply. So now we have the power hooked up here. Make sure you have it in the right order, like green, white, black from the top here for ground, neutral, and live. And then over here I use the middle terminals for the 24. The red is the plus, so that has to be in the plus section here. The black is the minus, so that has to be in the minus section. Goes to the switch here, and then from there to the board where plus is on minus is on top, plus is in the center, and then the bed heater goes down here again, plus center, and then minus on the bottom. One thing to note, if this is always on, then your cable here are flipped, and like this cable needs to go over there and that cable needs to go over here. So it should be like this, that when you turn it on, the power comes on here. When you turn it off, the power goes off. And so that's the wiring of the power. Okay, so for the wiring, we're starting with the steppers. For that, put the case on the front so you have access to the bottom here. Take the 3 stepper cables and mark them left, right, and center, because it actually matters where these plugs go in the end. The board needs to know which stepper is which lead screw, and then it can do the auto tramming and all that. So take the center one that goes up here, and from here you feed it through the little slot here. Leave some slack because we're gonna actually tie it to the feet here. Then take the left, which is actually the one on the right here, because if you move it up, then this is actually the right side. So put that in here and feed it through the slot. Again, we're gonna leave some slack. And last, take the right, put it in this one. And the last one fits through fairly tight because there really is only enough space here for like 2 cables and 1 plug, and it does get a little tight fitting that in. Okay, there we go. Make sure you don't scrape the cables too much there. Okay, then we take some cable ties. Mine are just a little too short to go around the leg, so I put 2 of them together like that, and then tie the cable to the leg here. Make sure there's a little bit of slack here, and It doesn't have to be too tight, just so that it doesn't like flop all over the place. Then do the same thing on the other side here. Again with a little bit of slack. Then we're gonna do this here. Here we have both the left side and the center stepper here. Okay. And then the last one, this one here. Where you take all the cables. Push them through here. And then we take a clipper and just cut the little pieces here off that we don't need. And that's it for the bottom. Tighten this one a little bit more. Just like that. And then we can put it upright again and work on the back side of the printer to start wiring things. So the next part is going to be a little challenging to film, mostly because I need to film from both sides of this wall here. Also, I'm probably going to just hand hold it and see if I can finagle it like that. First thing we want to do is the 2020 here. We loosened it to get these cables through, and so just center it again and then go to the other side and just tighten these screws again. Okay, that's it for that. Then here we have the slot where the stepper cables came through. So you're going to take those stepper cables and feed them through this slot here to the other side of the case where the electronics board is. Okay, now that we have all the cables through, when you push them through, make sure you have the black cable on the right side and the red cable on the left side for each of them, so they all should be aligned the same way. And then we're gonna plug them in. We take the center one, goes in the first plug, and again black on the right, red on the left. Then the left goes next. This one is very short because it comes all the way from the other side. Okay, like that. And then last, the right one goes into the third plug. So that's center, left, right. And then we can actually feed these cables back through here. Just leave a little bit of slack, just like that. And we're gonna pull them back out on the bottom here once we have them tightened down. And then we'll probably make a little loop down there and keep the spare slack out of the way. One thing about the steppers here, so I'm using the first 3 steppers from the right for the C motion, then next 2 for the XY motion, and the expansion board for the extruder. And the reason why I'm doing that is the extruder board, like the expansion board here, is not a point of failure. Like there's a plug here, there's another PCB and so on. This thing can fail independent of the motherboard itself. So if that happens, I much rather have my extrusion to stop than any of the motions, right? Like for example, having C motion, like one of the C motion stop could be bad because the bed would completely get out of level, and that obviously would not be ideal. So that's why I'm using the 5 steppers that we have on the main board for the XY motion and the Z motion, and the expansion board goes for the stepper, for the extruder stepper. So that's that for the C motion. Then we can take the first XY stepper here, use cable ties on the on this little loop here and on the first cutout here. And then what I'm doing here is I'm actually moving this back inside and just gently move it in here. Like this, and then bend it down on the inside behind the Y end stop. And then, so going down here again, bring that cable out through the slot here. Like that, and again we're gonna have the black on the right side and the red on the left. And the stepper that is straight above the board goes into the last plug here, and we can pull that back and deal with the slack inside. Just like that. And then the last one, we're gonna use like the cable tie on the upper loop here, and then 2 more cable ties here, more cable ties here, like right here, and then move it through the 2020. And we probably want to do that after we do the bed. So let's continue with the bed quick. Okay, so these are the bed wires that we fed through the little slot here. The red is the plus, the black is the minus, and then the sensor cable. Take them and feed them behind the power supply cable here. Like make a little loop. Take one of the screws here for the duet. And screw it in the bottom center one here. Okay, then same thing for the black. Feed it behind here. Make a little loop and screw it into the bottom one. Then test again that all your screws here are tight, and close this up. Okay, and then take the sensor wire, also move it through here, and that goes on the bottom here. There's like those little two ridges here. They go where the latch is on the plug here, and then you can actually feed the rest of the cable underneath the electronics board, and that nicely tucks all of that away. So you probably want to do that first before you do the steppers, but if you've already watched until here and you've done the steppers, not a big deal. So now you take the last stepper, route it through here, route it behind the cables here, like just like that, and then again, black is on the right, red is on the left, into the second to last stepper plug here. And we're going to take care of the slack and everything here in a moment. So take the cable tie, and put it through the first hole here. Tighten that. Take another cable tie, put it to the next, back to the last one here. And then you can take cable tie, put it through these two holes. That. More here. Obviously that would be a lot easier if I didn't have to film, but hey, what you gotta do. Okay, and then put it around here, and we gotta put it underneath here. So then we take the cable channel for the back. These are M4 by 12 millimeters. Actually, these are M4 by 10 for mine, but I'll make this part a little thicker so I can use 12 millimeter screws just to have like less different screw parts. So M4 by 12 millimeter with a T-nut aligned like this, so it's nicely aligned with the channel. And then put those underneath here. Just make like a little loop here. Leave some slack for the plug in the front. Okay. Put that underneath. Put the cables in. Kind of want to make sure that the two power cables are on the bottom of that channel, and then the other two cables can kind of go into into the extrusion itself. It's a little finicky. Okay, like that. And then again, loosen the screw to loosen the like to move the T-nut into the channel, and then flick it, and just like that, we have those cables nicely tucked away. Cut off the ends of the cable tie here. And that's it in terms of stepper wiring the backside. We're still gonna deal with the spare cable on the inside in a moment. So for the inside, we still have to deal with the end stops, the XY coming from the top here, and the Z coming from the bottom. And we're gonna feed those through this slot here as well. Okay. And then once these are hooked up, we'll deal with the rest of the cable management right here. So back to the other side. So I went and labeled the 3 end stops as well. Just makes it easier when you plug stuff in to know what you're plugging in where. So these also come through the slot here. When you plug them in, they go into these three plugs here. And as you can possibly read, the first one is the Z Endstop, then the Y Endstop, then the X Endstop. When you plug them in, so let's take the Z here. When you plug them in, one of the cables goes straight through and the other two cables are flipped. So you want the one that goes straight through on the right side, like this. As you can see, the one that goes straight through is on the right and the two that are flipped are on the left. So do that for the X first, then the Y, and then the C. Sorry, then the X. C was the first one. Round the cables back a little bit so they look nice like this. So that's what it should look like with the 3 end stops plugged in. And then we go and work on the heater and all the other cables that come from the top. We'll still do the cable management inside, but I think we'll do that once we have all the cables routed the way we want them. And so this is what it looks like with the bottom part tied down. Two cable ties there, keep it nice and tidy, and then the cables that are too long pulled down here, and put a little cable tie, like make a little loop and put a cable tie around there, and that takes care of that. One thing I strongly recommend with the power cable, once you have it installed on the power supply, put a cable tie here and here, just to relieve some of the stress off the plugs here. You don't want these to go under stress. That could end badly. So just put 2 cable ties and you should be good. So once I started the motion tests and everything, I noticed that the fan was spinning very slowly, and it turns out that the power supply only outputs about 16 volt, so something's not quite right with it. I tried to adjust it with the trimmer here, but didn't get further than about 20 volts. So I guess I'm gonna take that opportunity to do the change over to the Fanless PSU. Just pretty simple. Unplug the power cable, switch the printer on to drain the capacitors. Once all the lights are off, switch the printer off, open the plastic cover here, and remove the 3 power cables down here, and then also remove the minus and the plus here. And then on the other side, over here, there are a total of 4 screws that hold the power supply in place. 2 are out already. Remove those, hold the power supply so it doesn't fall down, and then we'll be back to install the fanless one. So this is another one of those kind of hard to film situations where I have to reach both sides of the printer, so I'm just gonna describe what I'm doing. Basically I put the 2 screws on this side, M4 by 8mm with washers on the other side, and then hex nut on top of that, and just start them, like just screw it on a little bit. Then take the power supply and basically slide those screw in, and then on this side here align the holes and put one of the screws in on that side and tighten it. One thing to note is the 110 volt is next to the edge, whereas the 24 volt is next to the maestro. And so let me put in those screws and show you what that looks like. And here's the fanless power supply installed. Again, I put some cable ties here. You could also put it here if you wanted the cable to go out that side. So the fanless power supply is now hooked up, and I measured and it's 24.1 volt. So we're good to go.
So before we start the next step, we need to back up the SD card and then replace it with the image that I provided, as we are now starting to do actual motion tests and things like that.
So we're now ready to do motion tests, calibrate the Endstops, and do all that good stuff. We're gonna work on the C first. I haven't finished up the wiring on the upper part yet, just in case I have to take something apart again, so that I don't have to do too much work. Yeah, so we're gonna work on the C axis first. Those rails, they're still not tightened down, so they're still wobbly, and they will likely kind of wobble as they move, as the system moves up and down. To start that, go into the macro section, printer setup, and then all the way on the bottom there is a caution, disable machine limits. Run that macro, and that allows you to actually move your axis without having homed yet. And so in this case, just do like C plus 5. That moves the stepper down, like moves the axis down 5mm. C minus 5 moves it up. So that verifies that actually our movement goes in the correct direction. If this was not the case, you would go into machine movement, machine stepper movement, I think, and you would change the S0 to S1 or vice versa, so that they move in the right direction, and then restart the printer and try again. But ours is moving in the right direction, so I'm gonna move it just about all the way down. I'm gonna stop like maybe a couple of millimeters before and do the rest by hand. You don't want to run the printer into the base plate unless, like, if you don't have to. So let's go down 25mm. And as you can see, these lead screws are not aligned yet, so they're still very much wobbling around. And this is actually pretty good here. So turn the printer off and move the lead screws all the way down, just gently, so that they're all the way on the bottom. Then turn the printer on again. Run the same macro once more. And then we go minus 0.5mm twice. So basically we want to move it up by 1mm. Okay, so now we're like 1mm from the bottom. And now we're going to adjust the Z Endstop here. If you look on the side, you can see the little red LED light, and that's lit right now. So loosen these two screws here, and then gently move the end stop up until it just switches off. There we go. And then you go and you tighten these two screws again. As usual, everything's a little tight here, so okay. Make sure the Z Endstop doesn't move. It's nice and solid. And if you now move up 5mm, the LED comes back on. Move down 5mm, the LED goes off. So let's move the axis up by 50mm and do a home C. And that's perfect. So as you can see, it basically it moved up, came down fast, hit the end stop, moved back a little bit, and then slowly back into the end stop until it switches off. And that gives us really accurate Z0 measurement. So, now that the end stop is okay, we have to align the rails and the lead screws here. I ran the bed all the way up, or I should say the axis. The lead screw, the rails are still not tightened down, as you can see. I'm going to show what I'm going to do on the inside over here, but then show what I'm doing on the outside over here, since I can't film both at the same time with my setup here. So we're going to use a alignment template here. It basically goes over the lead screw and the rail and makes sure that the lead screw is nicely aligned with the rail here. And then what we want to do first is basically, as the axis is all the way up, you're gonna tighten the top screw with the template over here. Okay, tighten that one. Then we're gonna move the axis down a little bit. Where are we? Here. Probably about 50 millimeter. Look, it's 75. Put the template underneath again. Tighten the next screw down. Do the same thing over here. Okay. Go down another 75. Put the template underneath. Tighten the next screw. Okay. And basically keep on doing that until we're all the way down. And then we can home C for the bottom one. Here we're putting the template on top of it. Okay. Okay, so that's the first step. And I can actually tell here this stepper is not nicely aligned. I think this rail might not be nicely aligned. when I try to put the template on, I can definitely feel that the front edge of the rail presses against the template while the back edge is kind of loose. So what we can do for that is we can actually measure that. Go from the front of the case here to the thread of the lead screw, and we have 44.6 millimeter here. And we have 45 millimeter here, so about off by 0.4, which is, yeah, I can see how when I take the template off, the lead screw bends towards the back, so we definitely want to fix that. So let me see if I can just adjust it with the rail. Let's run the bed up again. Yeah, I can definitely see the vibration here. This one looks much better. Might need a little bit of adjustment. Okay, so let's loosen these screws once more. Let's try this method. Have the bed all the way at the top, have the template here on the bottom, screw this one tight, screw that one tight, and then move just the template down. Okay, let's see how that goes. Much better. There was still a little bit of a wobble, but that might actually be the distance in this direction, but way better than it was just a moment ago, so I think I'm pretty happy with this for now. Likely what we'll do is as we put the bed in, we'll do another round of measuring and verifying. But for now, I think I'm fine with this. Let me check the right one once more. Actually, I like to look just past this edge here. And home. Yeah, that looks really good. As I mentioned, the other thing you would measure if you go, you move the bed up again. The distance from the outside here to the rail is the other thing that we can measure. And that should be the same here at the top as well as down here. Or close to the same. Okay, so the template down here, then measure from the edge of the, like the outer edge of the lead screw to the front plate, front face of the rail. I have 24.1 millimeter here, and if I measure down here, I have 24.2 millimeters, so about 0.1 millimeter off between the two. That's pretty great. That's likely as good as you're gonna get it. So once you have these measurements okay, we're gonna do the back here. This one doesn't go all the way down because of the Z Endstop here. As you move it up and down, it looks pretty centered. You know, if we measure the top here, to the rail is 24.15, and on the bottom here it's 23.9, so about 2.5 off. Probably could adjust that a little bit. I hope you guys can see this. Loosen the 4 screws of the stepper plate here, and since we didn't have enough, not the same amount of distance here as we have on the top, just press a little bit on the back of the, it's a little tight here. Let me just loosen the extrusion here. You just press against that and then tighten the counterplate back on. Do it crosswise. And then screw the 2020 extrusion back on. Okay. Okay, and then we can measure once more. Okay, now we have 24.0, 24.15, so 0.15 millimeters difference, and I think that again is pretty good. Let me run the axis down again and take a closer look at what the wobble looks like. Well, now what I can see is that as it went all the way down, the lead screw actually is not aligned properly here. So looks like it's a little too far to this side here. So let me run it up again and keep an eye on that. Yep, and now it's straightened out. Okay, so we need to move the stepper towards this side here. Loosen the counterplate again here. This whole configuration, like the whole alignment stuff, can be a little bit tedious, but once you have it set up, it definitely will. It makes a difference in your print quality, and in addition to that, you only need to do it once at the beginning. Once it's set up, you're good to go. Okay. Yep. It definitely moved like a nice chunk over, so I think it should look better now. Dead center. Perfect. Okay, so that's it in terms of alignment. As I said, we're gonna measure once more once we have the bed in, but for now this is great. This looks really good. And obviously, if you run into problems, I'll be always there to help you through that. So okay, so now we're doing the Y Endstop. As you can see here, the LED light is currently on. What you want to do is you want to move the carriage to the back until it hits the end stop there, and then back off maybe a millimeter or two, maybe 2 millimeters or so, just like that. And then you're gonna push. Sorry if this is shaking here, it's hard to reach. You push the fin forward until the LED goes out. Once the LED is out, you hold the fin in place. Move it back a little bit to get access here. And you tighten the screw underneath here. Just do one for now. Then pay attention to the LED light. Move the end stop in. Now the LED light is off. Check again that you have about 2 millimeters between the side bracket and the Y end stop, and that's good now. So then you can move the end stop forward so you can reach the second screw and tighten down as well. Make sure the first one is tight, and just for good measure, move the end stop in once more. And check that you have about 2 millimeters and you're good to go. Looks good. And that's it for the Y end stop. So for the X end stop, it's really 2 steps that you need to do. First, we need to set the depth of the fin here, and after that we're gonna adjust the holder itself to get the X location of the end stop. So what you do is move the carriage all the way to the back until it touches until it touches the back of the wall, or of the end stop holder there, of the Y end stop holder. Then move the fin till it almost touches, just like this. And then go and tighten the 2 screws. Let me see if I can do that one-handed. Okay. So there's the tiniest of gaps. And the reason why that is okay is because the Y Endstop will actually stop about here. So the fin reaches nice and deep into the X Endstop. And even if it runs all the way to the end, it doesn't crash into the holder itself. Then leave the carriage about like this. Now let's pay attention to, let's see if I can get that angle. Yep, we can see the LED here. So move the carriage all the way to the left, and again back it off like maybe 2 millimeters, just like that. Then loosen the 2 screws here that hold the X Endstop holder in place. And now move the X Endstop holder to the right until that LED goes out. See this? Now it's on. Now it's off. On. Off. And then you tighten the 2 screws again. Make sure that your X Endstop holder is fixed in place. Move the carriage to the right. Move it to the left slowly. I think I moved it a little bit when I tightened it. So let's do that again. Move it all the way over here. Oh. You gotta be careful obviously when you... Yeah, there we go. I accidentally moved the carriage forward. We can actually check how far it goes there. So let's check how much space we have over here. Yeah, that's quite a bit before the Y Endstop hits. The Y Endstop hits about here, and so at that point if we go in here to look, yeah, that's perfect. So now move the carriage forward. We've already done the motion test, so let me get the other phone quick and do a home C test. Just a second. So I just found that the fan duct is just a little long. I will have to redesign some of that part. Basically, when you go to 350 millimeters, it hits the lead screw just a little bit, and that obviously is a problem while homing. So what you need to do is you need to move the carriage just so that it almost touches the lead screw, like really close to it, and then readjust the Y Endstop over here so that it's pushed forward, so that when it's at this position the end stop is triggered already. And then after that you go and you move the carriage over to where the channel is here. Make sure you're still in the same position where the end stop is just now triggered, and you adjust the fin, the X fin, so that it almost touches the back of the wall of the channel, and that should give you the correct position for the Y end stop. So now we're ready to home our X and Y axis. The printhead is about in the center of the bed. Let's hit that button. It does Y first, hit the end stop, then it does X, hit the end stop, and homing complete. After finishing the initial homing test, you go into the, let me focus on this. You go into the homex.g file. There are two lines that are marked as remove this after initial test, and then uncomment the one below. If you do that, you're increasing the homing speed a little bit, and it looks like this. And that's complete now too. And with that, we're done checking our XY and setting the end stops for X and Y. Okay, as a bonus feature, I'm going to show you how to install the BL Touch, because that really works great with the RadZ capabilities. This is the mount point here in the fan duct. You take the BL Touch, two M3 by 8mm panhead screws, and put them into the holes here. Then hold the fan duct so that the big part is facing you, and hold the BL Touch so that the label is facing you with the cable away from you, and slide it in here and tighten the two screws. Make sure it's nice and snug. Okay. And then we're gonna mount that onto the Hemera. You take the fan duct and you put the cable in between the fan duct and the Hemera here. Then align it with the fan itself and the three screws here, and use three M3 by 8mm countersunk screws, and just gently tighten it so far. And you don't really want to tighten that one hard. You definitely don't want to like tighten it so much that the screw might touch into the, might go into the case, the Hemera case behind it. You take one of the rectangular nuts that comes with the Hemera. Kind of hard to show that at an angle. Here. You take one of those, slide it in here into the slot, and you put the last M3 by 8mm screw in the back here. And just tighten it enough so it doesn't move. Okay, that's good. Then you take the back corner. The reason why we have that is if this was all one piece, we wouldn't be able to take the fan duct off the extruder, because the part that goes to the actual fan would be in the way. So you take the back corner, take an M3 by 40mm countersunk screw, put it in the hole and push it all the way through so it comes out the other side. Align it here and screw this screw in just a little bit so it stays in place. Then take a M3 by 20mm screw countersunk and put it in from the front here. Okay, tighten that one, and then go back and tighten this one, and that's it. Your Hemera now has a BL touch and a fan duct.
To attach the BL touch to the Maestro, we need a special adapter, and originally I planned to have you guys make an adapter cable and go through crimping and all kinds of stuff, but that seemed cumbersome, and so instead I decided to make a PCB. The PCB is tiny, it's packed together with the stack of bearings, so make sure you don't lose it. It has two connectors on it, a male and a female. The female connector plugs into the Maestro, and the male connector is used to connect the BL touch cable. The PCB has the color abbreviation next to each of the pins to make it easier to plug in the cables, but you can look at the picture later on and see it from there too. If your plug looks like this, then you need to take the pins out and move them over so that the black is on the outside and the white is in the center, and then you plug it in like this. And this is how it plugs into the Maestro facing upwards.
When you turn on the printer, if you look at the C probe, it should do that twice. It should basically move the pin in and out twice. If it doesn't do that, if it stays red, or if it blinks red, then you have a problem with the connection, or that the pin might be stuck. Just pull the pin out slightly and push it back in, and then restart the printer once more, and that should be it. Okay, time to put that cable into the cable chain, and then that's it. Like cleaning up some wiring, and that would be it in terms of wiring. One thing to note about wiring the cable chain, when I do that, I usually have the PTFE and like the PTFE on the inside on the bottom, the heater cable on the outside on the bottom, then in between the fan cables and the temperature probe, and then on top the stepper cable, and all the way on top I put the C probe with the signal cable at the top of the chain, and then the power cable underneath it, just to reduce the amount of interference you might get from for the C probe from your heater cable. Not sure if it makes that much difference, but you know, why not?
So I just noticed that the video that I took that showed the rest of the wiring somehow got messed up, and well, I guess I'll have to refer you guys to the ShadowMega wiring video. I'll link that in the corner here. And the only thing that really changes from that is that the extruder stepper goes onto the right port of the expansion board instead of the main board. And so for the steppers, just follow what was in the video earlier here, and the extruder plugs into the right port of the expansion board. And that's it.
So I think without custom cables and custom crimping and all that, I think that's probably about as good as I get it in terms of wiring. So that should be it. Still need to put the bed in and put the pole bearings on the bed and wire up the bed, and that's about the last of it.
After doing some tests, I noticed that the step drivers were running a little hot with the 3C steppers on there, so I made a mount point that allows you to mount a 50-15 fan, blower fan to blow along the edge of the case and over the stepper drivers and under stepper drivers particularly, and just mount it to the 2020 there. And that STL is included in the download that you got, and if you got the option to, you should have a printed version of that as well. Yeah, just mount that, take a 15-15 blower fan, preferably a high performance one, and plug it into one of the fan ports, and you can control that by software, but you probably want to leave it at full blow whenever you're printing.
Okay, so now to install the pole bearing or pole bearings, turn the bed over, keep the connectors on the right side here. You'll need the 2 pole bearings, 3 M5 by 8mm pan heads, 6 M5 washers, 2 more M5 sliders, 3 silicone washers, and the 2 printed templates to align the pole bearings. In addition to that, a ruler with centimeters on it will be very helpful, because we want to make sure that this here is actually properly aligned, because we're going to use the template here to align the pole bearing in the back, and obviously if this is not aligned, then the pole bearing will not be aligned. So let's do that first. You just put the ruler here along the front 2020 and align it so that the 0 is exactly on the inner edge here, and then this edge here should be at 195 millimeters. I'm just about at 200, so what you do is loosen these screws. I think I've loosened them already, and gently tap the extrusion into the direction that you need, another millimeter. Yep, just like that. And then also measure the front here. A little bit more here. 195. 195. Okay. And then you can go and tighten these M5s here. Okay, and just for good measure, go and check once more. 195. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to install the front bearings first. Take the template. There are two M4 by 14 millimeter screws in here with two M4 T-nuts. Align it in the front here. Oh, actually, let's prepare a pole bearing first. Take one of the pole bearings, M5 washer, nylon washer, another M5 washer, and one of the M5 sliders. Put the slider in just so it's almost tight but not quite, so it should look like this. Like pole bearing, washer, nylon washer, another washer, and then the slider. Okay, then it's going to be loose enough that you can slide it in here. Okay, and check that the washer is above the 2020, and then take the template, as usual, loose the screw and tighten it. Oh, that didn't turn. Let me try the front one first. And for this one, you really just need to tighten the front one. I think the side one is not that important. Then you need to loosen the T-nut here so you can actually move it, and put it into it needs to go all the way into the template here, and actually use the M5 screw here and pull it against the template. Okay, and then make sure the pole bearing here is straight, and let me see if I have a wrench. Okay, didn't find the wrench, but got a Swiss Army knife with a little plier that has like some teeth in here, which works as well. Then just go in here and tighten this until it's nice and tight. Okay, I think that's it. Then take off the M5, take off the template, and that's your first pole bearing installed here. Now let's do the other one again. Pole bearing, M5 washer, nylon washer, another M5 washer, and the M5 slider. Put that over here. Put in the template. Tighten it. Okay, so second pole bearing. Slide it into the template. The pole bearing itself has like a little flat area in the front, which slides into the template here, and it should be really snug. Tighten it, check that it's straight here, and then go and tighten it to the slider. Okay, I think that's it. the template. Make sure your pole bearing is secured. Then we're taking this screw and the T-nut out of this template and put it into this template. That's the one that we're using for the back. And this one gets fit so that the cutout here is over the back extrusion. And the important one to tighten here is this guy. Okay. Now this one here already has the slider in there. So just prepare the pole bearing with washer, nylon washer, regular washer, and then this one is a little tricky to get in and not lose your washers. So as you can see, this one is a little trickier to fit. Maybe I need to upright the bed. Of course, like that you won't be able to see what I'm doing, but yeah, I think that is easier to screw it on. Okay, so I have this now attached to the slider. Move the pole bearing into the template and screw it on. And then make sure the pole bearing is straight and tighten the M5 on the bottom. Okay. Then we can remove the M5 again and remove the template. And there we go. 3 pole bearings installed. The bed is now ready to be installed in the printer. So we're actually on our very last step now, installing the bed. Reason why we do this at the end is A, the bed is heavy. We've been carrying the printer around, turning it and moving it into position and so on quite a few times, so not having to deal with that additional weight is a good thing. And in some cases it also would have been kind of hard to get to certain places if the bed was already installed. So bed goes in last. First thing you want to do is take the cable chain here and put it to the outside so that nothing gets in the way of it. And then you want to home your Z-axis. Once that's done, move the Z-axis up about 100 millimeters, so just about like this. And now we can lift the bed in from the front and rest the pole bearings on the 3 sliders. So to do this, reach around the inside here, have it at an angle, and slide the front 2 in here, and the back one should fall in place in the right place. Okay. Then tilt the pole bearing down a bit and slide it into the bracket so it's nicely aligned, and do the same thing over here. Okay. Then you can take 2 of the M5mm screws. I mean M5 by 8mm, sorry. And screw the pole bearing onto the bracket here. Okay, Move the bed up a bit more. Just enough so you can actually reach underneath. Oh, actually, you can move it fairly high up. About like that. And lift the back here up, tilt the pull bearing down so it can go into the, there we go, so it goes into the bracket. Take the third M5mm, and obviously if you have access from the other side of the printer, then this part is a lot easier to reach, but I'm kind of confined here. Okay, and so now the bed is solid in here. Time to wire up the heater. Run the bed almost all the way up. It's easier with the cable chain to get access to the screws here. Then open the little plastic latch here and take out the first 3 screws. Then measure your cable here from the last chain element here to the beginning of the metal part of the heater cable. That should be about 10 centimeters, and the sensor plug should also be about 10 centimeters. So if you have less than that or more, just adjust them, and you might have to readjust some of the stuff behind the case, but that's the amount of slack you want in here. Then flip the cable chain over like this, or the cable chain holder. Put it on like that. Make sure that the sensor cable here is under that little overlap, so that you don't squish it by accident. And then loosen these a little bit here to get them situated. So okay, so now the holder here is attached to the bed. Like tighten one of them, that way the thing stays in place. Then you can go and attach the sensor. Okay, and keep that out of reach here. And then I usually do the black first, and then the red after. That might be a little better. So the black goes into the second hole here, and if you look at it the way it's bent, the bend goes inwards, so the cable, the plug here is actually on the outside of it. Take one of the screws, put it into the loop here, and screw it in. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want that to be loose, because that could spark and basically cause a fire. Then take the first loop of the plus of the red, put it into the first hole, and screw that on tight. Okay, and then we take the second loop here, and that goes into the third spot. Okay, tighten it, and then you want to make sure, like, just bend it in gently a little bit so that it doesn't reach out too far, because we don't have a lot of space on the bottom here with the edge. And when you first lower the bed, make sure you check that this doesn't catch. Okay, if it does, just gently pull it back, like push it back in. Just make sure you don't like rip out the connector. And then we can go and attach the other two screws here. Let me see if that caught. Yeah. And this one turned as well. Okay. And that's the heater assembly. Now we can go and start lowering the bed. Let me turn it down a little bit here so you can see. Yeah, that has a couple of millimeters here, so that's perfect. One of the things I'm usually doing. Okay, so I guess my C height is not correct yet because it just went a little too far and the steppers bottomed out. If that happens, just run the bed like into C home again and bring it up. Okay, and now what you need to do is you take the lead screw here and you push it down, because with the C couplers that we have, if you're bottoming out the bed, it actually separates the C coupler a little bit, and all you need to do is basically push that down again. And now if we're moving the bed, you should see all three thrust bearings turning again. That means your couplers are perfectly set again. So as I was saying, I often put like on the little metal edge down here, on the bottom of the bed, like on the bottom of the case, where the bottom gets screwed onto the side. I put a little bit of gaffer's tape on there, just so that that edge doesn't possibly rub on the cables here, if that ever happens.
And this completes the build video. We're now ready to do calibration and get the final setup of the printer.